When I first discovered this journey, I was totally dedicated into trying to eliminate a lot of insecurities about myself. And one of those reasons, one of those chapters was the insecurity of blame. And I noticed how I was blaming everyone for everything except myself. After I started discovering the book and I started studying David Hawkins, I discovered that I was blaming everything on everyone without taking responsibility. Then I started taking responsibility for all the events in my life. And through the process, I decided to then start making peace with everyone in my life or past life. One of those people was my father. And when I was 16 years old, I used to live with my father, and we got into an argument, and my father kicked me out of the house. Ever since then, I lived with friends, and I got through life working, paying my bills, and making the best out of life. But 19 years later, after I discovered this journey, I decided, like, why am I so angry with my dad, even though I remember the reason why he kicked me out? And in the process of making peace, I called him, and he came over my house one time. I remember that day exactly, and he stayed in the car, and he was passing by because he works as a taxi driver. So he passed by my house, and I came out of the house. And as I was telling him everything that happened back then, and I said that, you understand that I'm sorry why I was so angry at him, why we didn't speak, why I was keeping my distance with him. And my father told me, I don't know what type of memory do you have, but even though we had that argument, I never kicked you out. You left on your own. Right there, the realization came to me. I was blaming him, and we create stories that we want to believe because we want to defend ourselves, to make ourselves important. Why we don't put blame on others? Why we need to put the blame on others and not take the responsibility? When I found out this about my father, then we made peace. But just in February of 2017, my father was cooking, and he went to bed, and he died of a heart attack. So why am I telling you this? It's because we sometimes feel that if we don't uncover all these insecurities that we need to amend within ourselves, we will constantly keep carrying them. So can you imagine if, for myself, not knowing that I had blamed him unconsciously just to feel myself as a victim, and my father would have died without me clearing this up, I would have carried this on for the rest of my life, not knowing. Now, this is why I strongly recommend everyone that they need to do a moral inventory. You're constantly going to hear me speak about a moral inventory because it is where we take a note of all our insecurities and we start uncovering them one by one by meditating into each section until that section gives us the life experience that is going to give us the clarity why we need to surrender that situation. This takes us back again, now back to the books. Again, letting go. I'm on page 58. Everyone can read with me. Everyone, please feel free to share your comments. Blame is the world's greatest excuse. It enables us to remain limited and small without feeling guilty, but there is a cause, the loss of our freedom. Also, the role of victim brings with it the self-perception of weakness, vulnerability, and helplessness, which are the major components of apathy and depression. You understand? So then, if we look within ourselves, we are moving up through the levels of consciousness by eliminating certain things, apathy and depression. I'm jumping to the middle of the next chapter, which is more relevant, and I'm trying not to make my videos really long, just so people get the context of what I'm trying to share with everyone. We have to be honest and realize that we are blaming because we choose to blame. This is true, no matter how justified the circumstances may appear to be. It is not a matter of right or wrong. It is merely a matter of taking responsibility for one's consciousness, activities, wrongdoings, right doings, everything. But when we are trying to clean ourselves, we are looking at all the wrongs, you understand? But later in the map, as we advance, then we start being more grateful. We have to get to gratefulness, so like that we can start crossing the bridge. It is a totally different situation to see that we choose to blame rather than to think that we have to blame. In this circumstance, the mind often thinks, well, if the other person or event is not to blame, then I must be. Blaming others or ourselves and simply is not necessary. The attraction of blame arises in early childhood as a daily occurrence in the classroom, playground, and at home among siblings. Blame is the central issue in the endless court proceedings and lawsuits that characterize in our society. In truth, blame is just another one of the negative programs that we have allowed our mind to buy because we never stop to question it. You see, so it's not just that we are programmed by our parents, by our insecurities or our events, and also by society. So there's a lot of this shuffle, this paradigm of reality is not as real as we think it is. Whatever we're seeing out there is not actually what it is. It's what we're holding in here, what is real. So as we start unraveling that shuffle, that confusion, the reality starts to emerge. Why must something always be someone's fault? You see what I was doing with my father. Why must the whole concept of wrong be introduced to the situation in the first place? Why must one of us be wrong, bad, or at fault? What seemed like a good idea at the time may not have turned out to be that as well. To overcome blame, it is necessary to look at the secret satisfaction and enjoyment that we get out of self-pity. That is so important. The satisfaction that we get out of self-pity, the blaming that I was saying, I'm not going to talk to my father because it's his fault. He's the one that threw me out. He caused the argument. He did everything. So because of that, we hold that as a perception that makes me right, out of which I have to make the blame. But in reality, that wasn't the truth of the story. Resentment, anger, and self-excuses, and to begin to surrender all these little payoffs. The purpose of this step is to move up from being the victim of our feeling to choosing to have them. At this point, I realized I was blaming him, and after the blaming, I was already forgiven him by the time I approach him. But the realization of that it wasn't him and it wasn't me only came because I realized to work on it. If we merely acknowledge and observe them, they begin to disassemble. They begin to break apart and the reality starts coming through. Then begin to disassemble them and surrender the component parts. Then we are consciously exercising choice. The moment that you realize that you're taking blame, then when you realize that you're holding this perception that is not real, then you can start to surrender by admitting that it exists. In this way, we merely make a major move out of the morass of helplessness. So at this point, we don't feel that we are just helpless, but at this time we start taking control of our own lives because we're starting to gain confidence about ourselves. Until the next video, my name is Willie. I'll be sharing the link of the book on the details. Also, there's a group, the Letting Go group. You can join us there, share all your experiences, whatever you want to talk about. Thank you for watching. Until the next one, stay spiritual.